Joe Hopkins here with a question for you. Should you buy a vintage guitar? And I ask that question because a lot of people are into vintage guitars. I've owned a couple myself. I don't at the moment, but I've owned a couple of vintage guitars. I have family members that own some vintage guitars. I've played a lot of vintage guitars. I've also played a lot of new guitars, name brand guitars, budget guitars, all kinds of stuff. So I can make a pretty good comparison. So should you buy a vintage guitar? And the answer really depends on what it is you want, what it is you're looking for, what it is you like. One of the good things about a vintage guitar, if it's already, if you get it, if it's in good shape after 30, 40, 50, even 60 years or more, it's a quality instrument. It's going to last. It's already stood the test of time. Another good thing about a vintage guitar is, or any vintage instrument, a lot of times it's unique. It's something that not everybody has. You can't just go to the store and buy one. You go to places that sell older instruments, and I've known a couple of those types of stores that have a lot of older and vintage instruments, and they have different stuff there that is almost one of a kind. It's the kind of thing, they sold a bunch of them back in the day, but you don't see a lot of them now. For instance, I owned a Mosrite Celebrity guitar, right? It was a semi-hollow body guitar made in the 60s. My dad bought it in like 1975 for $100. Now those things go for thousands of dollars. But never should have sold it. I sold it. That's bad on me, right? Great guitar. One of the downsides to a vintage instrument, mine definitely had some age on it. The pickups were a little bit loose, needed fret work done. Nothing serious, easy to fix stuff. But it was unique. I've only known, in the time I owned it, I knew one other person that had a Celebrity like that, another hollow body, and one other guy that had a solid body Mosrite. But I didn't know too many people that owned Mosrite guitars because they're not that common, you don't see them every day, not like Gibsons and Fenders and stuff like that. Same thing with acoustic guitars. If you get, there's a store my wife and I used to go to. They're closed now, but they had a lot of vintage instruments, and she loved trying out the different vintage guitars. Like the little jazz, like arch top guitars with the F-holes and all that kind of stuff. And, different vintage instruments, old banjos, old fiddles. Some of the fiddles we saw there were like 120, 130 years old and still played really great. So, they've already stood the test of time and they're well made. Most of them were made in Germany or France. And it's something we had considered buying, but just didn't have the money at the time. Mostly because that store had really good deals on stuff. We could have bought them for like $500-600. And it would have been something unique. That's a good reason to buy one. Now, not a good reason to buy one is because you just want a guitar. If you just want a guitar, you can get, unless you get a really good deal on a vintage guitar, and then definitely get it. But, if you just want a guitar to play around on, why go vintage? Get something newer, less expensive. Most vintage guitars cost some money, usually, unless you find a really good deal. I'd say if you find a really good deal on a vintage guitar, if you like it, buy it. But that's the thing, if you like it. Definitely be careful with places like eBay and Reverb and anything you're ordering off the internet, because with older instruments, you don't know what you're getting, really. You don't know how it's going to sound. Not all vintage instruments sound good, right? Some of them sound like junk. I've heard some that really, they're not very good guitars. They weren't very good when they were new, and they're not very good now. And some of them are really beat up. Time has taken its toll on them. Unless you're looking for something specific. And then you might have to go to eBay, Reverb, that kind of thing. Facebook Marketplace is pretty good if you live in an area where you can find stuff like that on there. Just keep your eye out, because then you can go and look at it first. Going to music stores is great because you can pick it up and play it and actually see what kind of shape it's in. But, ultimately, should you buy a vintage guitar? And the answer like I said, it depends on what you're looking for. If you really want something unique, something that's different, or something that has a particular sound or tone to it, a lot of times older instruments, the tone changes as they get older. And you look at older instruments, they don't sound the way a new instrument does. And they don't even sound the way they did when they were new. They can sound quite different and sometimes a lot better. Some instruments age very, very well. So definitely take a look at those vintage guitars, those vintage instruments, any kind of vintage instrument, man. I've seen some old banjos. I've seen some banjos that are from like the Civil War era, and they're great. Some of them. Some of them are like, meh, not so much, but some of them are really good. If you can find a music store where the prices aren't too bad, it can be really fun to get something that is old and very you. You know what I mean? Definitely take a look at it. Look around at pawn shops. You never know what you'll find. Now, prices are going to vary. If you find a vintage Martin, that's going to be expensive. You find a vintage Gibson, like an acoustic or something, that's going to be expensive. That's going to be stupid expensive. But there are a lot of other brands that aren't as well known, that sound great, and some of them, you could find brands that aren't even in business anymore. You can't buy those guitars anymore and have something that's totally unique, totally you, which can be very, very cool. So get out there, look up where there are music stores near you, especially small mom and pop shops or places they get used instruments often, or pawn shops. Pawn shops can be not always the best. They seem to be trying to get every buck out of it that they can. And a lot of times the mom and pop shops, it depends on where you go. Some of those places are great, and they're a gold mine for finding unique instruments and stuff that's different. The one my wife and I used to go to, it's a shame it closed down. They had all kinds of cool stuff. But yeah, look around. Find a music store especially one that specializes in used instruments, and see what you can find, right? Used guitars, vintage instruments. They can be really great. They can be really cool, and it can really be something to check out. So get out there, it's like a scavenger hunt, baby. It's like a scavenger hunt. Get hunting, get looking. Whew, man, somebody's hot rodding down the road there. I heard that. I don't know if it come across the microphone, but they're revving it out there. So yeah, get in your hot rod, rev it up, right? Boom, boom, boom. Get on your bike. Get on that bad motor scooter and ride. Blam, blam. And get you a vintage guitar, right? I might do the same. I might. I don't know. I got to take a look at some things. I got to take a look at my budget. I have a lot of guitars already, but I'll see you guys in the next video. I got a guitar review coming up soon. I might be getting some more guitars. It just depends. I don't know. Maybe not. That's what I do. I buy guitars, I review them, and then I have a guitar. So I love you guys. Peace out, baby. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.